Okay, good morning. Welcome to the Thurston County Board of County Commissioners Agenda Setting Work Session for November 30th, 2021. It's 9:02 a.m. My name is Ty Menser, Chair of the Board. Vice Chair Commissioner Gary Edwards and Commissioner Carolina Mejia are also present through Zoom. We have a 3-hour work session this morning with a hard stop at noon. The meeting is being live streamed on the Thurston County YouTube channel. And County Manager Miro Chavez, Assistant County Manager Robin Campbell in the boardroom. And we'll just pick right up with item 1, which is our COVID-19 update. I see Director of Public Health and Social Services, Shelley Slaughter, and our County Health Officer, Dr. Dimiana Abdelmalik. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Today is day 664 of Thurston County's COVID-19 emergency response. In Washington State to date, there have been 773,069 confirmed cases of COVID-19 and 9,257 deaths. This includes 22,769 cases in Thurston County residents, with 295 new cases reported to Thurston County Public Health in the last week. This puts us at 352.6 on the governor's risk assessment dashboard over the last 2 weeks. There have been 255 deaths of Thurston County residents reported to us, with unfortunately 5 new deaths reported in the last week. There have been 1,427 Thurston County residents hospitalized, with 8 new hospitalizations occurring in the last week. Our hospital capacity remains full but stable. There are our acute beds are at 96% capacity, and our ICU beds are at 82% capacity. There are currently 32 COVID patients hospitalized, and 24 of those are on ventilators. We've had 104 congregate care outbreaks to date, with 10 that our team are currently investigating. We have testing widely available. Strongly encourage people, especially if they have been exposed to someone with COVID-19 or are experiencing symptoms, to get tested. We have community-based testing available at Rochester Organization of Families today from 10 to 1, tomorrow in Lacey, Thursday at Union Gospel Mission, and Friday at the Evergreen State College, as well as multiple community sites. We're making progress on vaccines here in Thurston County. We have administered 413,464 doses of COVID-19 vaccines. This includes all COVID-19 vaccine providers in Thurston County. 64.3% of our population has initiated at least 1 dose of the COVID-19 vaccine, and 59.4% are considered fully vaccinated at this point. 73.6% of those 16 and older have initiated at least 1 dose, and 70.5% of 16 and older are fully vaccinated. So that's good progress. Of those 12 and up, 74.9% have initiated at least 1 dose, and 69.2% are considered fully vaccinated of 12 and up. We do not yet have percentages for ages 5 to 11 in Thurston County, but Thurston County Public Health has administered close to 1,800 doses of pediatric COVID-19 vaccines to those ages 5 to 11. And I also want to share that we not only do we have pediatric clinics scheduled at the mall, we have an upcoming mass vaccination event at Thurston County Fairgrounds this upcoming Sunday, December 5th, starting at 9 a.m. Encourage people to register on our Thurston County Public Health and Social Services website to register your child for that event. Also, we continue to have booster doses as well as prime doses available at our Capitol Mall Clinic site daily, and we're also out in the community at multiple locations, including at New Life Baptist Church this upcoming Thursday. Strongly encourage people, if you have not got vaccinated yet, have not got your child vaccinated yet, or you are eligible for a booster dose and have not done so yet, we strongly encourage you to please register, please come to one of our clinics or other vaccine provider and get your COVID-19 vaccine as soon as possible. And I will pass it over to our amazing health officer, Dr. Abdimalik, to report further information.
Good morning, commissioners. I wanted to take a moment to update you a little bit about the Omicron variant. This is a variant that was first identified in South Africa, and over the past few days, confirmed cases have been identified in countries around the world. To date, we don't have any cases identified in the US. We in Washington State have a robust COVID-19 surveillance system, meaning that viral samples that go to our labs are screened first quickly for a mutation that's easy to identify, and then sent for full sequencing. So it's a two-part process. So the initial piece, we get answers back in a few days, but the sequencing, so in terms of finding the full genetic signature of a variant, can take up to a week. But with this system, we can respond quickly if there is any suspicion of a positive case in our state. There's a lot that we do know. What we've seen from this variant is that it has a large number of mutations compared to other variants. Some numbers have put it at 32 distinct mutations compared to the wild type. There is, however, a lot that we don't know. It is spreading, even though Delta is currently the dominant variant. So we're looking at whether or not it may be more transmissible. More studies are needed to determine what the impact of this new variant is on disease severity or deaths. But it's the good news is that so far it is taking experts time to look through the data very carefully. So it's not an obvious increased risk, and we will know more in the coming weeks. The good news is that all of the protective measures and mitigation measures that we've been practicing since the beginning are effective in preventing the spread of viral respiratory illnesses, and including Omicron. We'll be learning the specifics of transmissibility, but all of the things that we've been doing in terms of masking, distancing, avoiding crowds, increasing ventilation in spaces where possible, in addition to the critical piece of staying home when sick and getting tested, are still the cornerstones of preventing spread. This includes spread of all strains that we've seen of COVID-19. It is very likely that the vaccines that we have will provide some protection against this variant, and studies are underway to determine what the specific efficacy of our current vaccines are against this variant. However, right now, the dominant variant circulating here in Washington State is the Delta variant. There have been, in the US at large, we haven't had any identified cases, and one of the best things that folks can do to protect themselves and their family at this point, in addition to the mitigation measures, is to get vaccinated if they're eligible, and to receive a booster dose if eligible. And with that, I'm open to any questions you may have.
Commissioner Mejia.
So in regards to the new virus strand, the Omicron, is that correct? That's the name. I mean, I know the data is still pretty new and it's still coming up as we're seeing more of it. Have we been able to tell the vaccine's effectiveness against it? Like if have your 3 shots versus just having 1 or 2, is there a difference on it?
So at this point, that's a major question that scientists are wanting to answer, and they're doing it by looking at they're doing specific antibody studies to determine the vaccine efficacy against this variant. So I anticipate it'll take some time, likely within the next few weeks. We should be able to have at least an estimate of what the efficacy is.
And do we know for the transmission, is the transmission more prone to older generations, younger generations, middle age generations?
So at this point, we're still collecting the data because this has just been detected. So we're definitely at the beginning. So we will know more about who specifically is at risk as in the coming days and weeks.
Great, thank you. My next question is for Shelley. Shelley, with the vaccines for children, are we partnering with any of the schools? I believe I saw one with Olympia High School, I believe, that we did, but I was wondering if we had partnered with any other schools in order to get vaccines out.
Yes, partnering with schools is a really important part of our strategy. Olympia School District had another vaccine provider that they partnered with, that we supported them with vaccine allocation, as well as messaging. Continue to meet with the school superintendents on a weekly basis to discuss our COVID-19 response, including vaccines, and have upcoming plans to continue to vaccinate on site in schools. And we've already done some of that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Edwards.
Yes, Shelley, what's the age of the individuals? We lost 5 folks, I think you said, fatalities this week.
Those were all in older adults. I don't have the specific ages of those cases in front of me right at this moment, but I can get that for you. And also we share the age ranges on our website.
And when you say older adults, I mean like over 80, over 70, what is an older adult? To me, it might be different than it is to you.
Yes, all of the deaths in the last week were over the age of 50.
Okay.
Hey,
What was that, Chair?
I don't like being called an older adult.
Typically, that's not the category that we would consider officially an older adult. I just happen to know that is the age range of the deaths that occurred this week. I'm happy to follow up and get that information.
That was the same reaction that I had.
At least 55, come on.
How many different variants are out there? I mean, mutations or however you keep track. I mean, are there quite a few? Has this virus mutated quite a bit over the last couple of years, or what's the deal in that regard?
So we have seen a number of variants pass through. We would, if we were going chronologically in the Greek alphabet, this would have been the new variant. However, because there might be because of linguistic concerns, in terms of people, in terms of interpretation, the Omicron name was chosen based on WHO criteria. So we've had a number of variants. So the way that it works is that there are variants of interest where people just detect a change in the virus, and then there are variants of concern, which means that the change in the genetic code of the virus may lead to either increased transmission, increased disease severity, or decreased antibody response. So those are kind of the things that we look at, as well as our ability to test for it. Right now in Washington state, more than 99.9% of cases sequenced are the Delta variant. There have been a few cases of the Mu variant that have been sequenced, far less than 1%, in terms of what's currently circulating in our state. The Omicron variant, we're still learning about how transmissible it is compared to Delta, essentially, and so that mix has the potential to change, but it's still too early to tell. So there are a number of variants. A much smaller group of them are variants of concern, which give the virus either an advantage in terms of spreading between people, or a change that causes worse disease, or mutations that makes it harder for immune systems to fight the virus. So of the many variants that exist, there are a few of those, and then of those, we have two that have been sequenced recently here in Washington state, and we're still watching for Omicron.
When you say a number of variants out there, does that mean 100 or 20 or? And then we've got those of concern, but kind of give the public some idea of what we're talking about. A number could be 2. I don't know the number, so I'm curious.
So
roughly, I don't expect you to have it exact, but roughly, what is it?
So what I would say is that because viruses are rapidly mutating, there are likely a number of mutations that then fall off because they're not competitive against the dominant strain. What we have right now is that there are approximately 10 variants being monitored by the CDC, as well as in addition to 2 variants of concern. So that would be the Delta and the Omicron lineages that we're also watching for. But because the way viruses replicate, there's a lot of room for error. There are likely slightly different genetic signatures for different groups that are infected at different times. Most of those don't really affect the overall population of virus, but the CDC is monitoring approximately 10, with Delta being a variant of concern, and we're still watching for Omicron.
Of all of those variants that are out there, isn't that the same thing that the common flu used to do? I guess the common flu went away this year, but didn't the flu used to mutate and they had to adjust the vaccine to address that? And then they'd end up with maybe 40% success or 60 or whatever it was. Is that something similar?
Yes. So the flu virus does mutate, and it does mutate significantly from year to year. We have seen a few cases of flu this year, so I would definitely encourage everyone to get their flu shot, and so that they can be protected from severe illness due to the flu, which in the past, in pre-COVID times, was resulted in the death of thousands of folks each winter season. So it's very important that people do that, and there is circulating influenza virus in the U.S. In terms of coronaviruses, they typically mutate slower than influenza viruses. But because we have so many, and this is typical, but because there's so many people being infected at the same time around the world, there's much more opportunity for that mutation. projecting outwards, I'm not sure, and I'm not sure that anyone is certain at this point what the variant mix is going to be, and at what point, if and at what point a new vaccine may be needed. I do know that companies that are vaccine manufacturers look at these variants, and the mRNA vaccine that we've used, so the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, the way they're made makes it very easy to create, I mean, relatively speaking, of course, to create a vaccine quickly in response to a new variant, compared to prior modes of vaccine manufacture and development. So I guess overall, while we have really high case counts, we are likely to see more mutations. And while many people in the world don't have access to vaccine, we're likely to see more mutations. However, if we have a mutation that significantly reduces the efficacy of the vaccines that we have available, the way the vaccines are made that we're using are very adaptable, and I have confidence that we would be able to adapt the vaccine to address the new variants.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Shelley. Thank you, Dr. A. Appreciate it.
County manager's got his hand up, sir.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I'm off the frame. Can you adjust the camera, Brian?
Go ahead, County Manager.
So, thank you for that, Doctor. And I know that it's yet to be seen the new variant of the virus, whether the current vaccines are effective or not. Similar to what we went through when the Delta variant came, is a process of assessment the efficacy of those vaccines. And also you stated, without knowing yet, you stated some of the practices, public health practices that have been implemented has been effective. So the question that I have for you is that your opinion at this point, the vaccination is still one of the best tools for us to protect against the virus, including the booster shots.
Yes, at this point, vaccine is definitely one of the key tools that we have to prevent severe illness and death from this virus. It is unlikely. So while there may be a change in efficacy with this variant, it is the most likely situation that the currently available vaccines will continue to provide some protection against the variant, with studies being run now to determine the exact efficacy. So it's still essential for everyone in Thurston to get vaccinated and get boosted when eligible.
Yeah, thank you. And having 64.3% of the overall population here in Thurston County have initiated first dose, those are very encouraging numbers.
This virus thrives on those that are a host for them. And so the unvaccinated in our community are going to be the most vulnerable as we expect that we will see Omicron arrive here. So this is really the time when I said to get vaccinated. If you're kind of on the fence, please do that, especially as we have the holidays coming up, and continuing to wear the mask will protect you against flu as well as COVID. So be really diligent about wearing your mask, even if you're already fully vaccinated. I myself got my booster shot as well as the flu vaccine at the same time. No issues at all with that. I got my 5 to 11-year-old, he's 10-year-old son vaccinated as well. I believe and trust in the safety and efficacy of these vaccines. So I really hope that people will take this seriously, because we really want to end this pandemic and we don't want to see another huge surge overwhelm our public health department, overwhelm our hospitals. and result in any further kind of mitigations. We don't want to roll this back again. So, and just to follow up on a couple of the questions I didn't have the answers to earlier, we had one death in our 50s, two in their 60s, one in their 70s, and one in their 80s. And we do have 2 upcoming vaccine clinics planned in partnership with our school districts, North Thurston High School on December 10th and Yelm High School on December 11th. So watch out for that if you're in those communities and want to get your kids vaccinated.
I got one question for Dr. A. The news reports about the European surge of Delta, I think. I'm just wondering, that seemed to be a little unexpected to me in terms of what I was hearing at the end of the summer and through the early fall. There was going to be I think a late September peak and then a diminution of cases related to Delta as vaccine. Is that, what are scientists attributing the new kind of crush of Delta wave in Europe to right now?
So it's well, of course it's multifactorial, but there was a mutation in the Delta strain called Delta Plus, which is a specific mutation that based on our early data may have been 10% more infectious than the Delta variant. That would be one. And of course, we have continued. And of course, as winter and cold weather sets in, there is some, shared airspace gatherings, and all of those pieces also are likely contributors.
Are there vaccine rates, last I checked, they weren't that different than the United States? Is that still true, or are they higher, or for Europe in general, kind of?
So my understanding is that it varies quite a bit by country. Okay. Yeah, and as do the specific mitigation measures. So Europe is so different countries in Europe are taking pretty significantly different approaches. I'm happy to look more into it and get back.
I'm just curious. I know some countries seem like they really are ping-ponging a little bit. Some countries were really opened up and not doing much, and now they've kind of snapped back to really strict measures. And but obviously there's a lot of different governments and countries involved over there. Okay, thank you guys. We got to move on this morning. Appreciate your time. Okay, let's go to item 2, which is homeless strategies update. And I see Keely Marino from Public Health. Good morning, Keely.
Good morning. Keely Marino, Public Health and Social Services, with a brief update for you. Of course, starting off my report with what's going on with our rental assistance programs, starting with community youth services, who are housing and helping those in housing who are between the ages of 18 and 24. They've spent about $1 million at this point in rental assistance for those young people. 124 households completely served, and there are 225 other households in progress. Community Action Council has served 3,112 households now in Thurston County, spending out around $22 million in rental assistance. $1 million in utility assistance at this time. So moving right along. In the other news, of course, there are the sweeps that are upcoming. There's one next week on the 8th of December in the city of Olympia at the Deschutes encampment. We have been meeting, Olympia Mutual Aid Partners and myself have been meeting with City of Olympia staff to just ensure that we have a pretty solid plan of how we're going to move forward with that. The city is intending to put as many people as is reasonable in hotels, and that process is underway. Olympia Mutual Aid Partners has put together kind of a screening criteria, and City of Olympia staff have created just a behavioral agreement for the hotel, so that's moving forward. But they do intend for that entire encampment to be completely free of debris and residents by Friday the 10th, completely clear. And then the following week, there will be the Ensign Road sweep between Providence Lane and Lily Road. At this time, I have not heard that there are any solid plans on where those individuals living aboard their vehicles will be going. So as soon as I hear any updates on that, I will certainly let you know. Olympia Mutual Aid Partners are still continuing to operate the Scattered Site Pilot program despite all these disruptions. They've slowed down a little bit in the last week or so in order to just prepare for their entire program changing, essentially. So they will continue serving those that live in Deschutes Parkway that are currently enrolled in case management. They'll continue serving them wherever they end up following the 8th. And we'll be pivoting their program a little bit just to be a little bit more sensitive to the fact that these encampments can shift and change at any given moment. Excuse me, even though they had a reduction in outreach. Oh, sorry, I have a household full of puppies. So that's for your listening pleasure this morning. So they did manage to make 78 contacts in the last week, and 8 of those are new. So even though the numbers are a little bit reduced this week, they're still moving forward with operations and making contact with individuals and referring them into programs. And then lastly, our diversity, equity, and inclusion RFP was reissued yesterday, and we will be accepting applications for that up until the 14th of January in 2022. And that's what I have to report.
Commissioner Mejia?
Yes, Keely, I have a question, first of all, for the rental assistance. Thank you to Community Action Council, 3,112 households. It sounds pretty incredible. But with the 22 million that have been already used, my question is there still a demand for more? I mean, is the funds that they have available, do they have a wait list going on where basically it won't fill the need? Do we know that information?
I can speak anecdotally from the meetings that we hold on a weekly basis that yes, there indeed still is a great need. We have the ability to pay forward some months and pay rental arrears. So as we move forward throughout the pandemic and perhaps some households still aren't able to work for whatever reason, they're able to reapply. So some of the households that are being served are applicants. They've already been served and they're being served again, or they are new. So absolutely still a need.
I think Assistant Manager Robin Campbell has a follow-up question.
It is. Thank you, Commissioner. So, Keely, when I looked at the Community Action Council website yesterday, I saw that there are no appointments available for rental assistance and no way to sign up for energy assistance. And when I tried to call the council, the phone just rang and no one answered it. So what is the council's plan to address this, or perhaps we can follow up with them?
I was not aware of any of those disruptions, and we do have a meeting set with them tomorrow morning, and so we will certainly address it there. And we can also reach out today as well, and I can report back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have one more question. That's okay. My next question is there an update on the France Anderson site?
Right now, we have not received, I know they have received the owner another option. So they're considering those options at this point, and we have not received a response.
Okay, thank you.
Commanding Manager, I didn't hear you said, I didn't understand what you mean by another option.
Well, they owner received another offer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that they're considering that.
Commissioner Edwards, go ahead.
Keely, on these young people that we've spent $1 million on, do we also attempt to get them jobs?
So that is a question better answered by Community Youth Services. I'm not, we spent a lot of time talking with their rental assistance provider, but their young adult housing program is under the direction of another employee at CYS. And so I can certainly ask, but I do understand every person, young person that is enrolled in a CYS young adult housing program has a dedicated case manager. So part of what they do is help them ready themselves for when they age out of the program, meaning jobs or schooling or what have you.
And then you made reference to individuals that are enrolled in case management. What I'm wondering about is that entails maybe treatment or alternative living places or maybe job placement as well for those?
That's correct. Case management, it's led by the participant in every program that I'm aware of in Thurston County, whether it be for youth or single adults or families, that is participant driven. So what it is that they present that they need or that what direction they want to go in is supported by case management as per best practice.
Is there any chance that at some point you could give us a briefing on what a success story of all of your endeavors involved where this person has been able to pick themselves up and change their life and they've got a job and they're a productive member of society, that type of thing. So that the citizens that we're representing can see that some of this money has turned a benefit. Is that a possibility that you can let us know some of those stories?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else from County Manager? Anyone?
No, thank you.
All right, thank you, Keely. We'll move to item 3, which is a review of this afternoon's board meeting agenda. Meeting will be called to order at 2 p.m. We will have Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Commissioner Mejia. We will consider the proposed agenda for approval and then board meeting minutes from November 23rd. Public will have the opportunity to address the board, item 1, and then item 2 is County Manager's update. Anything there, Ramiro?
I don't have any specific items to follow up this afternoon, Commissioner.
Okay. Consent agenda is item A through F, with 3A being a general obligation bond 2021 Fund 2330.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. You reviewed the items 3A and 3B, and you had a discussion. This is more of a technical step that we asked the board to do. Item 3A is to create a new fund, Fund 2330. That will be where we're going to be putting the general obligation bonds for the ERP project. The second item, 3B, is similar but a little bit different. We did create a fund, 3230, to where we put the general obligation bonds to implement the large system implementation IT systems. We've received, as you heard from Robin last week, from financial services, the feedback, the best way is to create a new fund, which is, I believe, is the capital fund, which is creating a new fund 5270. And as a result, it will be the abolishing the previously created fund 3230. Again, this is just a technical adjustment just to make sure that we keep track of all the many different expenditures related to the general obligation bonds, ERP, as well as the large replacement systems. Anything to add, Robin?
It's just exactly the flip. We're going to create the 3230 and abolish the 5270. This is a technical change requested by financial services and the treasurer.
Questions on 3A or 3B from the board?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay, very good. Look at 3C. Public Health and Social Services contract renewal for Tacoma, Pierce County Health Department.
Yeah, last week,
online food worker training.
Commissioners, last week I gave you a heads up. It was not on your agenda, but I will be bringing this item for your consideration. This particular item is for you to consider approving a contract with Tacoma Pierce County Health Department for online food worker training, testing, and card issuance. And the proposal is to go from January 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2026. The current contract lapses at the end of this year. The gist of this contract is to issue workers' cards. And they set up by statute. They have to pay $10 when all of us go through and requires a food card. The contract stipulates that the Tacoma Pierce County Health Department will retain $3 out of the $10 cover to all the online program maintenance costs. And the remaining $7 is transferred to public health and social services. Just to give you a perspective, in 2020, there were issued close to 12,000 cards to Thurston County residents. And the result of that, it was generated close to $84,000 to public health and social services after taking the $3 that we pay for the services for the Tacoma Pierce County Health Department. I know that Sandy Berg is here to answer any questions related to this item.
Questions, Commissioner Mejia?
No, sir.
Commissioner Edwards?
This is like restaurant workers and such that need to have a food handler's card, and they sign in or something on a website, take the class, take a test, get a card mailed to them, send a check for $10, whatever. I mean,
And it goes a little bit beyond that. For instance, when we host, hopefully this coming year, we'll host the pancake breakfast at the fairgrounds. I need to hold that food card. So it goes beyond the just restaurant workers. Any other citizens who has a social event they're going to be handling food, they need to secure a card.
is this a contract that Pierce County has? They probably help other jurisdictions in the same way. Do you know the answer to that?
I do not know if they have other contracts with other jurisdictions. Sammy, do you know that?
Basically, the Pierce County has this same contract with all the other jurisdictions in Washington State.
Okay, good enough. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I don't think I have any questions on that. Let's look at item 3D. This is a reappointment to the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee.
Yeah, for your consideration, Commissioners, for you to consider reappointment of Mr. Kenneth Jones to the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee. And the term will be from November 1st, 2021 through November 1st, 2024. And I believe you discussed this particular reappointment, and that is why it is on your consent agenda.
Any questions on this one?
No, sir.
Then the next one is a reappointment to the Noxious Weed Control Board.
Yeah, you also discussed this reappointment of Mr. Fran Sant to the Noxious Weed Control Board, and that is the District 5 representative. And which includes the southeast portion of Thurston County, and the proposed term will be from October 31st, 2021 to October 31st, 2025.
My recollection on these two is that they were reappointments and there were no other applicants for the positions, or there even were open positions as well. Is that right, Amy?
Correct.
Yeah, she said that is correct.
Okay. Commissioner Mejia, anything?
No, sir.
Commissioner Edwards?
No, sir.
Okay. And then item 3F is the financial services voucher list. Questions from the board?
No, sir.
Okay. Then we'll go to item 4A, which is community planning and economic development, a comprehensive plan amendment related to the Tumwater Joint Plan.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners. This is an item the board has reviewed in the past, and this is related to the joint plan with the town water. And that mainly related to the urban growth area of town water, which is in the unincorporated areas of the county. Through this process, the board held a public hearing on September 28th, where you accepted public testimony. And staff held a following briefing with the board on October 20th. And on November 2nd, the majority of the board provided the direction to include the draft as recommended by the Thurston Planning Commission and the City Council as well. As you may recall from Maya last week, she provided clarification. The recommendation from the Thurston Planning Commission included only not including a portion of the recommendation. It was not only inclusive. It was only a chapter. And based on the conversation that you had, and that is probably the majority of the board 2-1 to include all the recommendations provided by the Town Water Planning Commission as well as the City Council. And this is for your consideration, taking the final action to implement this component. And I think Leah is here to answer, Maya, to answer any additional questions that you may have.
Commissioner Mejia, anything?
No, sir.
Commissioner Edwards?
Not at this time, thank you.
Okay, very good. Let's look at 5A, emergency services item, fiscal year 21 emergency management performance grant.
Yeah, and you reviewed this item last week, commissioners, and this is the emergency management performance grant. And the performance period of this grant is June 1st, 2021 through August 31st, 2022. Where we'll be receiving $120,938. The Federal Emergency Management Performance Grant, as also known as EMPG, provides an annual funding to support local emergency management programs and capabilities throughout the state. This funding is primarily used to support Thurston County emergency preparedness, public education programs, resource management, and logistics planning and preparedness and mitigation planning. This particular grant is already expected, we expected to receive, and it's already included on the 2022 budget as an additional revenue. And again, this is, we asked the board to approve the receiving this grant, and this will give the instrument as to when we're going to be receiving the money next year. Clerk Harding is here to answer any additional questions you have.
Any questions for Kurt from the board?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Nope. Good to go. Thanks, Kurt.
Thank you.
Item 6A is a public works item, contract award for moderate risk waste transportation and disposition management services.
Yeah, thank you, commissioners. As you know, Thurston County Public Works has a facility also known as a Hazel House, which provides for the collection, proper management of household hazard wastes. This has been an extremely successful program. We do not charge in any of the services to the citizens who bring those hazardous materials to the household house. And this particular proposal before you is to authorize the department to issue a request for proposals to receive proposals related to the transportation and disposal of those materials. That particular request for proposals, that was already conducted on September 9, 2021, and it was received 2 proposals. During this process, the department is recommended for you to award the contract to Act Enviro of Quin, Washington, for an amount of $500,000, and the performance of this contract, I believe, is 5 years, and the $500,000 is over the period of 5 years. Jeff Brickford, the solid waste manager, is here to answer any particular questions related to this item.
Questions for Jeff, Commissioner Mejia?
No, sir.
Commissioner Edwards?
The only thing I might bring up is for the benefit of the citizens that follow what we're doing here. Is there any possibility that Hazel House could at least be mentioned in the verbiage on this action? And the only reason I say that is everybody in our community kind of knows what Hazel House is and what a good job solid waste is doing. And I just thought for clarification, that's all. Not a big deal if it can't, but.
Not receive. I talked to Angela Celestine, and she was going to resubmit the AIS with the with the addition of Hazel House in the title. Was that not received?
Yeah, we'll make this change.
That's because we discussed this a week or so ago.
We'll bring the revised AIS this afternoon.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you, Jeff. That's the substantive business. We'll have the commissioner reports and county manager reviewing schedule. Hopefully right around 3 o'clock on schedule, we'll be able to start a public hearing regarding renewal and amendment of interim emergency housing ordinance 15792. And I think we're all familiar with that one. Anything, county manager?
Yes, unexpectedly, we'll receive a significant public testimony. We have received a significant written testimony. Some of that written testimony have used some foul language, but it is what it is. So I'm expecting that perhaps this you may be receiving public testimony. It appears, based on the written feedback we have received, there is a little bit of misunderstanding as to what the action is. It seems to be lingering the RV parking issue associated with this particular item. Some of the comments we have received, it appears they have a perspective that this particular action will go away without potential appeal of a permit related to that. So that is not really related to this action. So hopefully this afternoon on the staff's presentation, okay, we can take a little more time to clarify the intent of this particular action that you may be considering this afternoon, because it is a renewal of the emergency housing ordinance that has already been in place for a couple of years. No additional changes, I believe, maybe some clarifications, but nothing on this particular action. It is related to any permit appeal process or any related to any permits associated with this particular action. So that's probably my perspective in terms of what we have received so far. So I would expect that probably this afternoon we may receive pointed comments, and we probably have to manage a little way just to be civil with all those citizens who might provide that perspective in front of you.
Okay. Questions from the board?
Not at this time for me.
Okay. So that wraps up this afternoon. And next is budget public hearings 6th and the 7th, which, as I understand, we will have an agenda setting next Tuesday, but we will not have a board meeting because we'll be in the midst of the budget public hearings. Is that correct?
That is correct, sir. And we have a schedule, and we develop a more detailed schedule this coming week. We'll share that with you. The budget public hearings will begin 1:30 in the afternoon, and will take you all the way to 7 in the evening. And that will apply for both days, Monday, December 6th, and Tuesday, December 7th. On the agenda setting for December 7th, considering that you're going to have a long day, I will try to have a short agenda setting for you so you have a little break in between. So you will see a short agenda, at least just to look at the agenda for the December 14 meeting, and maybe a couple of items, nothing, just considering the long days you will have. Also, related to the budget public hearings, you received an email from a citizen yesterday related to the proper public notifications leading to the public hearing. And later on your agenda, at the end, the last item, you have an executive session where Elizabeth and I will walk you through, as well as Amy, will walk you through the content of that particular email that you received yesterday related to the proper public notices of the December 6th and 7th budget hearings.
Okay. Anything else that we need to address for item 4 then? Nope. Okay. Item 5 is proclamations and awards.
Good morning, Amy Davis, Clerk of the Board. There are no proclamations for review this morning.
Item 6 is advisory boards and commissions.
Yes, there is one application for review from Renee Radcliffe Sinclair for reappointment to the Solid Waste Advisory Committee. Her term expires January of 2022, and Ms. Radcliffe Sinclair would serve another 3-year term if reappointed. So this is for your review, and we can circle back next week.
Okay. And then we have these applications or these interviews lined up for the library board.
Yeah, I just wanted to share that we received confirmations from the 2 applicants for the TRL Board of Trustees for interviews this week, and they both very much look forward to connecting with you all. That is all I
Questions
have.
Thank you, Amy. Any questions from the board on advisory boards and commissions?
Yes, I do have one.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Amy, so when do you want us to move with the application for Renee?
So I thought we could circle back next week during agenda setting and include the reappointment, if that's the desire of the board, on the 14th of December.
Certainly, you can have that conversation today.
Yes,
I
of
was
course.
She has been
wondering-
serving on the Solid Waste Advisory Committee for quite some time. So there's that reappointment, that if the board feels.
I'm good with Renee.
Yeah, I serve on the SWAC board and she always has really good perspective, so.
I believe she's chaired that board, or at least co-chaired.
She's chaired it before,
Yeah,
yeah.
chair. She's chair.
So,
Does she have, does she sit in a particular seat, like as a representative of industry or something? I know there's different seats on the SWAC.
She is a citizen representative.
Okay. I've served with Renee on TRPC,
Yeah.
and I agree that she's a good person to have on there. So that we can just put her up for next month or for our 12-14 meeting then.
Oh, we can bring this up
Today.
this afternoon if you like, and considering that it's not a meeting for 2 weeks.
Again, we don't have any other applicants, correct?
Correct.
I'm good.
Okay, well, is that the pleasure of the board then? It's to stick this on today?
Yeah, I'm okay, yeah.
Yep, so we'll bring that up under your consent agenda.
Okey-doke.
So I do have a feedback related to the interviews that have been set up on Sunday, 1st, 2021. And the 2 candidates, 30 minutes. So we don't have any specific questions to ask them. So I will encourage the board members and Commissioner Wood, Menser, to help facilitate, to go around and maybe ask each commissioner if they have any specific questions to ask to those candidates. I will encourage whatever questions that you ask to be similar to each of the candidates, so you have a good sense as to where they're coming from. And this is more of an open forum type of conversation. I didn't want to, elaborate the specific questions because this is really not a job interview in a way. It's mainly for you to explore, what do you like to explore with those 2 candidates. So, and again, I'm glad that we were able to schedule for this Wednesday, and any questions on my suggestions?
Okay, so there won't be any particular script or set of questions. So commissioners, I guess you're suggesting that we think, sort of think in the next couple of days of questions we may want to ask, and we can just go round robin through the commissioners to ask question and include the county manager there too.
Right, sir. Yes.
Okay, that sounds all right to me. 30 minutes goes pretty fast.
Yeah. Is that?
That's good.
Okay, then let's look at item 7, PIO check-in.
Good morning, Commissioners, County Manager and Assistant County Manager. I have no specific updates for today, but I'm available to answer any questions that you have about our public information activities.
I have a question, but I'll start with Commissioner Mejia.
No questions, sir.
Commissioner Edwards?
No, sir.
This might be also for the county manager, but I know there was discussion about a press release regarding the 5 commissioners with the port, and then we had to rescind that. And can you just kind of let us know what happened there?
Yes, unfortunately, the Port Commission did not take an action on this, so the news release that was sent last week after it took an action included information that perhaps the Port Commission took an action on that. So Brian was very quick in clarifying that, and over the weekend, I believe, you can pick up that news release. It was on the newspaper outlining the Port Commission still needs to take an action. They will be considering that. I need to follow up with the executive director, see where they are in terms of taking an action, and we'll keep you up to date on that. Did I answer your question?
I think so. There's no, did they just run out of time to address the matter, or there was questions or problems from the port commissioners, or do we know that?
Yeah, good question. I didn't have the opportunity to follow up with the executive director over the holiday weekend, but certainly I will do that and get an answer for you more specifically in the next couple of days.
Okay. Any other questions from the board on PIO issues?
Well, that was a good question. I thought they had already taken an action.
I think it was scheduled like the same night that we were going to do it, and then we assumed they were doing it, and they didn't do it.
And
I'm not sure why.
I was under the same assumption.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, legislative update is item 8.
Yes, I'd just like to give you an update. It is related to the shared legislative agenda. That is a shared legislative agenda between all the jurisdictions here at Thurston County. When the draft agenda is produced, we'll share a copy with you. There is one item that is aligned with the county's legislative agenda, and is to support the Nisqually Bridge. Implementation of that is part of the overall corridor improvements on I-5 between Nisqually and south of Tumwater. Working with Deborah Manguia to draft a letter, and that was in response to some of the meetings that we had with some of the legislative delegation here, and they would like to see a little more of a letter as opposed to a legislative flyer. And that letter is going to be coordinated with the South Community Partnership Communities Program, as well as the Nisqually Tribe. And hopefully we'll coordinate that as well with the TRPC. I think in general terms, everybody's aligned to this particular request, and I will share that letter with you when we get to a conclusion. And again, Deborah is working on the details of that in the partnership. Also, the shared legislative agenda has organized a dinner event with the local delegation, and unfortunately that is scheduled for December 6th from 5:30 to 7. And that is going to be at the South Puget Sound Community College. I did inform Doug Mall that unfortunately he was going to be tied up on budget public hearings, and so anyways, I'd just like to give you some feedback on that just in case you hear something. And that is the reason why Thurston County may not be in attendance of that particular event.
Didn't mean to laugh.
So,
Thank you.
Could Deborah McKee represent us in some fashion or another?
well, it's a little bit of a toss-up because Dogma serves the same role as Deborah Manguia does for the county.
Okay.
And Dogma is the one who has that role at the shared legislative agenda.
Okay.
Could we send a letter, like just say,
Sorry.
sorry we couldn't make it, but
I did send an email to Doug as to the reasons why.
Okay.
So he will share that with the local legislators.
Ramiro, have you been attending each of the Zoom meetings that the commissioners have had with legislators?
Yes.
And has there been any surprising, obviously I've been on several of them, but I don't know about my seatmates. Has there been any surprising comments or reactions to our priorities to share with the board?
Yes, overall, I believe there is very receptive. That's my sense. There is a particular related to the first item on your legislative priorities to take the veterans levy as well as the developmental disabilities levy out of the general levy. There is some support on one end, and there's also an understanding of the need on the other end. There is a little bit of a concern, maybe from a couple of legislators, that perhaps that will create additional taxation. But also I see the benefit of that as well. So I believe we need to follow up with Representative Urquhart and with Commissioner Edwards, myself, and Deborah. Just we run out of time the last time we had the opportunity to hear that. Yesterday we had a conversation with Representative Wilcox, Commissioner Mesa, you attended, and I think on those terms, I think he was also looking for Representative Urquhart to provide a perspective on this proposal. And the other proposals that we have, I think it was very welcoming, I believe, overall, and they understand the request from Thurston County. So that's my high-level report to that. Do you want me to elaborate a little bit more on that?
No, that was all consistent with what I was hearing. My seatmates have anything they wanted to share about their meetings that they thought was interesting or unusual?
I've only met with, I think I have some coming up, but with the meeting we had with Representative Abarno, I thought it went very well. He said he was going to speak with Representative Urquhart and kind of get his input on why he had those concerns, but he didn't seem to have the same concerns at all. He was actually very excited about this possibility, so.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, Representative Wilcox was basically kind of just what Ramiro said. He kind of said, I see some concerns, but I see the value, and I'm going to kind of want to hear from Representative Urquhart on that because he's got a key committee assignment on finance and stuff. So more to come on that.
Commissioner Edwards would like.
Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner.
Yeah, I guess the county manager mentioned we kind of run out of time, basically, to get in depth on that. So, it'll be interesting to talk to Representative Wilcox. Maybe he's had a chance to talk to Representative Urquhart about that. Another piece is on December 6th, being we cannot participate, would it be worth, I don't know, slipping each representative a note and even other attendees there kind of under their plate that, hey, we'd be here with you, but we had a designated activity that we must take care of, but this is our list of priorities or something like that, just to kind of to give it to them fresh right at the time when the discussion is taking place.
Yeah, if you like, I can follow up with Doug Mott just to make sure that he makes a point.
Yeah,
at the
and
beginning.
let them know that,
Yeah.
you know, so, because these folks are swamped.
Right.
And so we might have talked to them yesterday, but this is, you know, a couple weeks later, or whatever it is, just to make it fresh in their mind that we're in sync with the others that are in attendance, it sounds like. So don't forget us. Okay?
Yeah,
I'll follow up with Doug just to make sure that's the case.
Commissioner Mejia.
I have a question for you, Commissioner Mensah.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if there was any conversation in your committee, forget the name. It's a climate change one.
Climate Action Steering Committee?
Yes, I was, TCAP kept coming, I was like, I know it's not that, but yes, in regards to legislative priorities, I know that we said we wanted to kind of align the two together just to be more succinct and what we were putting out there, but I wasn't sure if we said we were gonna kind of wait until.
Yeah, I know what you're asking. So yeah, the steering committee did take up that issue. The staff put together a proposal, and then Mayor Komet put together a counter proposal, kind of, and we debated those. We didn't have our meeting with the legislators themselves, but we I think are going to be. We didn't come to a final agreement. Basically, we gave some direction, and there's going to be an email coming around. We're canceling our December meeting, so we're going to, I think, approve the draft by email, and I haven't seen it yet, but probably hopefully by next week, I could report back to you guys on that. I'll bring that to the agenda setting if I've got new information on that.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
And also related to that, Commissioners, you will see on the December 14th agenda an item for you to consider approving amendment number 3 through the interlocal agreement with TRPC. That's related to support the climate action team. So I asked to get a fresh, revised proposal, and I'm hoping by December 14th I should have that in front of me.
Okay, then let's look at item 9, briefing public hearing decisions pending.
Yeah, Commissioners, you held a public hearing related to a potential home fund implementation last Tuesday. Well attended public hearing. I think we managed the public hearing very well, so thank you, Commissioners. And so as opposed to just bring this back at this setting, I have scheduled a meeting for this Friday, December 3rd at 9 in the morning provide the board opportunity to discuss among yourselves the comments that you received, and also at the end of the public hearing, the board passed a motion directing me to draft an ordinance related to this particular proposal. I have finalized the very draft ordinance last night. So I will distribute that copy for individual commissioners and the assistant county manager. Please keep in mind that I have not had the time to have a legal review on that. This is just the beginning of the conversation, so you will have the opportunity to review. Bring your comments for Friday, if that is the direction, and then I'll discuss with you as to what the next step will be and what will be the pleasure of the board. So I will distribute that draft, and let me emphasize, very draft ordinance, and hopefully we can get to that point in meeting the intent of the motion that you passed last Tuesday at the end of the public hearing.
Commissioner Mejia, any questions there?
No, this sounds great. Thank you, Ramiro.
Commissioner Edwards?
Did we get a correspondence from Lacey that they are not thrilled about this process, the way it's unfolding?
Well, the letter that you received, yes, from the city of Lacey, I don't think it was the term on those terms. I think it's a little bit different. I think my take is they're supportive of the regional approach, and they would like to see additional information related as to what outcomes will be related to implementing this home fund. I don't think they were concerned about the process. No, that was not my take on the letter. But if I missed the interpretation of the letter, please let me know.
Well, I don't know as I can say that you missed the interpretation of it, but I just wonder if a municipality was to enact this sales tax provision for their use, they would get to keep that money to deal with that problem. Is that right?
My understanding, and the resolution speaks about this, and the ordinance speaks about the options, is if any local jurisdiction has enacted this particular 1/10 of 1% prior to the county enacting this, then that jurisdiction will be on their own. similar to what the City of Olympia has done. The City of Olympia took back in 2018 through a special election. At that time, the only way they 1/10 for this particular purpose was in the law is to have a voter's approval. They were succeeded, so they already have that in place. Fast forward in 2019 legislation, this particular part of the law allows for a councilmatic implementation of 1/10. Understanding that for those jurisdictions who have already implemented a home fund, those will not be in a way double dipping on that aspect. So you will see on that resolution, on the ordinance that this particular action, whether the board wants to take or not, does not include the City of Olympia. To my knowledge, no other jurisdiction in Thurston County has taken this option to implement their own home fund.
So if we take that action prior to any of those other jurisdictions, they're kind of left out, basically. Not that they wouldn't receive some benefit through the county's management of the program, but they no longer can enact to their benefit where they would manage that money. They'd receive it and manage.
That's one way to describe it.
Okay, well, where I'm going with this, I'm trying to be fair with all those jurisdictions. I've been an advocate for a voter approved home fund. Let the voters decide. But if we do councilmatic, we kind of cut out those jurisdictions from being able to do something in which they would receive revenue and be responsible for expending that revenue. So I'm wondering, is there any chance that as we discuss this, and we can discuss it further at our upcoming meeting, that the possibility could exist where we may be able to word the ballot measure such, if it was to go to a ballot, if I was to be able to convince my seatmates to go out to a ballot, that each jurisdiction that voted on this issue and say they were to pass, the majority of the voters in their jurisdiction said, yep, this is a good idea, that each one of those jurisdictions would then be able to claim that reward, if you will. I don't know how simpler to put it, but allow them not to be cut out of the process by the county taking this action. All I'm trying to do is prevent us from taking resources from a municipality and that municipality having no say in the expenditure. Now, I know we're always going to try to work with all the jurisdictions, but I'm just saying from a legal standpoint, possibly I'll just use Yelm or Lacey, if their community says yes, why couldn't they keep that money and do their thing? And a lot of that would probably be in conjunction with what the county's doing. I'm just trying not to limit their ability to provide themselves with resources to deal with this problem. I'm maybe not articulating it quite.
No,
You see what I'm doing?
I think
What I'm proposing?
I believe I know what you're saying.
Okay.
So more to come on Friday, but let me address that a little bit. You will see in the proposed ordinance they have prepared for you. It is not the intent for the Thurston County to make those decisions for all. And the intent is and that ordinance, if the board wants to approve that way, is to have the decisions made at the Regional Housing Council. If the Regional Housing Council is a composition of elected officials from all the jurisdictions, they will have a say as to how they would like to implement this funding as well as other funds that come in through the Regional Housing Council. I understand your perspective that in terms of a jurisdiction will have somewhat the oversight and ownership if they pass their own. But I think what is amiss on that approach, if I may, this is a regional issue. And the approach that we should take, all of us in the region, it should be regional approach. To the extent that although the city of Olympia has passed their own home fund, they have already, among some of the feedback that I have received from, and Commissioner Mejia can probably attest to the fact that Regional Housing Council, that perhaps is an attempt to look at the regional and pull this at regional level, including the city of Olympia. So that's really the intent of the ordinance I have drafted for you. It's not just the county taking, it's more the decision-making process. It will be done at the regional level where all the jurisdictions should be part of that. So, more to come on Friday.
If I, oh, go ahead, Commissioner.
The advisory board is just that, though. They make advisory recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners who may or may not follow that advice, depending on the complexion of the board at the time. I mean, it can all change, and this tax is gonna be kind of forever, is the way I see it.
Yeah, I think in those terms, the projects generated at the Regional Housing Council, they will be recommended to the board. Those projects could be in the city of Lacey. Those projects could be in the city of Tumwater.
Yeah.
Those projects could be in the city of Yale. So it's not the intent to all those projects to be only in the unincorporated areas of the county. It's more inclusive of the region.
Yeah, I agree. I just think it's a safety net to make sure these other jurisdictions could access revenue if they so desired and wanted to do their own thing. That's all. That's kind of, okay, so more to come on Friday. We don't need to spend any more time on it.
I think Commissioner Messier.
I just wanted to add, I mean, I did yesterday speak with the mayor of Lacey on a one-on-one, and his main concern was that we would be working regionally to, through the Regional Housing Council or otherwise, somewhere where Lacey, in that case, would have a seat at the table. And when he heard that that was absolutely my intent, he seemed like he felt a lot better about where this was headed. Because he was thinking, he was saying, playing out the opposite. He's like, well, if Lacey passed it, we had control of money, I'd be turning around and trying to do an MOU to work with the other juries. I mean, we're all basically on the same page, it sounds like, to get maximum regional impact out of these dollars. To the extent that, as Ramiro said, Olympia is willing to work with us. I've heard it twice from the mayor, twice from the city manager, twice from their representative to the Regional Housing Council. I've heard nothing but enthusiasm from Olympia to this point for finding a way to pool. I don't know if the pool is the right word, but align our two. It's going to basically be two home funds, or it would, if the board took action, would be two technically home funds because it was passed by two different legislative acts. And the question is how to best align that. So I set up a meeting Thursday afternoon with some folks from Olympia just to brainstorm. I want to know how theirs works and try to brainstorm how this alignment might need to take place so that we can, if this board wants to move forward, we know the right things to put into our implementing ordinance to best accomplish that. But I'm not really even 100% sure how their whole system is structured. And so I'm going to try to get some more information about that on Thursday so I could bring that to the table Friday when we have our discussion. Just heads up on that. And that conversation is going to include the city manager, the city attorney, and their housing person.
Okay, let me just finish with, maybe a couple of years ago, there was legislation that allowed some money to remain in the community from a state sales tax. And as a fairness issue, the other we were a little late on moving forward with that. And we contacted the other jurisdictions and we asked them, well, maybe if you hold off, we'll be able to do this and then it won't be causing an effect on the overall revenue that we might be bringing in. So I'm just wondering if, out of fairness, it would be good to do something similar, just to assure those jurisdictions that if they wanted to, go ahead and enact something similar, that in the future. That's all, so.
And what you're recalling is absolutely on point, meaning it was a move afoot by all the jurisdictions to align the additional revenue to have a regional decision-making process. So, and again, I believe the draft that you will be seeing this afternoon hopefully speaks of that.
Okay, more to come.
Okay, great. Commissioner Mejia, anything before we take our break?
Nope, I'll be ready for Friday then.
Okay, it's 10:27. We're up to item 10 on the agenda. We'll pick up with that in about 13 minutes at 10:40. picking up in this Thurston County Board of County Commissioners agenda setting work session for November 30th with item 10.1, Keep Washington Working Policies. County Manager.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners. Let me just give some information in terms of the context of this particular policy, and Elizabeth will take the lead on this. In 2019, the Washington State Legislature passed the Keep Washington Working Act, also known as the KWW, to establish statewide practices regarding the enforcement of federal immigration laws by state and local agencies and provide improved support of economic opportunities for all Washingtonians regardless of their immigration or citizenship status. The purpose of this policy is that we have drafted for you is to assist judicial officers, courthouse personnel, law enforcement personnel, and local government officials in understanding and implementing policies consistent with the Keep Washington Working Act, and to help ensure that all residents, regardless of citizenship status, have full access to the justice system. Thurston County personnel shall presume that federal immigration authorities are engaged in immigration enforcement. So this has been a long time, particularly with Commissioner Edwards and Commissioner Menser, I believe. We have been going through a couple of iterations. The last time that we had this draft policy, the board suggested that perhaps we needed to put that in front of the public. We did that. We received one significant comments, a series of comments from the Strengthening Sanctuary Alliance, that's the group. And they were very specific on some of the revisions they suggested on that draft policy now. So before you is two pieces of document in your packet. One is a red line item where we have already included most of the comments the Strengthening Sanctuary Alliance has suggested. I'm gonna let Elizabeth to determine what items did not include it and why, and also include some other comments related to this since the last time the board had the opportunity to saw those policies. This policy also includes comments from internal stakeholders such as the Sheriff's Office, the courts, and everybody involved within the court system here in the courthouse campus. So that's the context of this conversation at this point. And this is a follow-up to all those conversations. We have for you a final draft that I believe includes all the comments we have received. And I'm gonna give at this point the floor to Elizabeth to walk you through the intent of this policy and also what comments we have incorporated and what comment, I believe is on one, we have not been able to incorporate as to why. Elizabeth?
Good morning, Commissioners. Romero, did you say you wanted me to walk the board through the...
Yes, just the main sections of the policy. And if you can, I know that we incorporated, I believe 99% of the comments suggested by the Strengthening Sanctuary Alliance group. And it was, I believe, one comment that was not able to incorporate it. If you can outline what that comment was as to why.
Okay. So you just want me to address the sanctuary comments that were incorporated?
Yes.
Okay. Do the commissioners have the bill format?
Yes, it has both the red line as well as the clean copy.
Okay. So let me just pull up my copy.
What page are we gonna be referring to? Yeah, I got both of them, but what page is she gonna refer to?
She's gonna walk you through the whole document.
Oh, through the whole thing? Are we gonna be here for a while?
No.
Well,
High level.
I just have to pull up my copy. It should go pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to find my copy.
Yeah, we don't see your video, but yeah.
And now I can't, shoot. Hold on. Well, Romero, while I'm looking for the copy, I think you could just walk through with the board.
Yeah.
Because the comments are all there. All the comments are related to incorporating the comments from Sanctuary.
Yeah, okay, so I'll do that. So I'm gonna walk you through the clean copy. And I'm gonna give you, outline the content of this proposed policies. Section 1 speaks about the legal authority and applicability. And one of the comments the Strand Sanctuary was to bring the definitions a little more meaningful to the front. That's what we did. And where you have next is the a series of definitions, and the definitions of all the words that we have used throughout the policies just to define what that means. And that includes on your definition. Moving on to page 4 of that, the clean copy, it speaks about access to Thurston County. And that is a very prescriptive as to what access to the law and justice system in Thurston County has to be transparent and open to everyone, regardless. Those who are involved in the justice system, mainly, regardless of the immigration status. Then, go ahead. And then section 3, it speaks about civil arrests near the courthouse facilities. As you may recall, back in 2018, I believe, there was ICE agents who arrested a non-documented individual who was part of the justice system. And that really was the catalyst because of those actions in which the Washington State Legislature passed this act. I do believe that was the catalyst because were approached a lot with a lot of information related to that particular action. Section 4 speaks about gathering information related to the immigration citizen status. Section 5, responding to requests of information.
Are we supposed to be having a discussion about this at this point in time?
I'll add in the terms of the policy, and then the board can provide direction as to how. I'm just outlining the context of the policy and for the public's benefit. I'm not expecting you to,
Okay.
And I am probably expecting for when they introduce this final draft for you to review it and provide some comments, but at the end of the conversation, I'll give you the timeline.
Okay.
I'm not asking the board to approve this today. No, if that is the. Okay. So section 5 talks about responding to requests for information, particularly from federal agents in law enforcement outside of the Surveyor's office. Section 6 talks about the use of courthouse resources. Section 7, detaining and booking individuals in the Thurston County Jail is very prescriptive about that. And several sections included under Section 7, which is the immigration hold and detention, also the immigration and customs enforcement, also known as ICE. That moves all the way to Section 8, which speaks about Thurston County Sheriff's Office immigration law and policies. We'll define on that. And then moving on to Section 9, and that is on page 18. is the how we use the different type of visa certification process and used by law enforcement agencies. And last but not least, on the last page, it speaks about a little more in detail the request review and T visa certification. So that's the context of this. I know that I'm rushing you through. I'm not expecting you to, provide that. I know that it was an interest to see if we have incorporated some of the comments that we received from the Strength and Sanctuary Alliance. I believe we have to 99%, except for one comment. And I believe the only comment that we have not been able to do is related to a policy, but the State Patrol. They made a reference to that. I believe we couldn't find a particular citation, but Elizabeth can go ahead and provide additional perspective on this policy.
Are you talking about the language that I wasn't able to find?
Yeah, the State Patrol.
Yeah, so anyway, as Romero said, all the comments that they did provide have been incorporated. I tried to look for this particular orders. They were asking that certain language be pulled in from a Washington State Patrol order related to consulate rights. And I tried I tried to search for that order. I looked through all my materials. I didn't have it, and they didn't provide it. So I could reach out to them, or someone could reach out to them to get a copy of what they're referencing, and we could pull that in if the board would be interested in doing that. But that's why I wasn't able to pull it in for your review.
Commissioner Mejia.
I have two questions. In section 4, in regards to gathering information related to immigration or citizenship status, in that section, it kind of covers it, but I just want to ask just to be sure in regards to jury duty. I know when a person's, has jury duty, the first question they ask you is your citizenship status. And it kind of is outlined with, kind of your identity and who you are. And sometimes, to be excused from jury duty, you have to give your, citizenship status on, whether you're able to serve or not. So I just want to make sure, that is covered under this.
So you're wanting language. That's a very good question.
I just want to make sure that the language that currently is covers that. It was something I thought I just had right now. It was like, I don't know why, but it was in regards to jury duty. And making sure, because I know for sure that, we are asking that first question out of jurors that are coming in, are you a citizen? And then some people, come in and say whether they are or not. And the multiple forms they fill out, that's one of the first questions, we ask them.
Okay.
I'm sorry, that's an interesting question. I was not aware that all the potential jurors are being asked about citizenship status.
Well, there's 3 questions that you have to ask, like in order for them to qualify as jurors. That's one of them. And so I just wanted to make sure that something like that was fit in here. I know there's 3 questions that jurors have to be asked, and that is one of them, for them to be, kind of make it through to the big pool of jurors.
Right. I would be happy to look into that and talk with the court to see whatever forms they have and to make sure. Obviously this is a court process, so the commissioners can't tell the court what to do, but I can certainly reach out to the court and see if they're already doing that, because I know the court's been conscientious of it, but I know that the Superior Court order that was originally adopted when this first came up didn't address those issues. So I could reach out to the court to see if they would be, what they're doing and if we can address that in this policy. And I also just want to make a comment that the policies that impact the sheriff's office and the corrections bureau, those were all policies that the sheriff's office already adopted. So I'm just simply pulling in what they've adopted. So I know they're on board because it's their own policy.
Right.
So I just have to, I would recommend that we reach out to the court to get
Just
their.
an overall question I thought about right now, Elizabeth, so thank you.
Okay.
And then I have a question in regards to Section 9, the UN visa certification request. And this is specific for law enforcement agencies, but I mean, requests don't only go to law enforcement agencies, they also go to judges, sometimes prosecutor. So do we need to include language in regards to that?
Yeah, I'm just trying to catch up to you on you're on Section 9.
Yes.
Okay. So,
What page is that on?
That
Page
is
18.
page 18.
okay, the UNT visa certification request.
Yes, so it says for law enforcement agencies' purpose, but these requests are not only sent to law enforcement agencies, they're also sent to courts and sometimes to the prosecutor.
You know, some of the comments that we received from, I'm gonna use the acronym, the SSA,
Yeah.
is specifically related to that. So you will find that on the last page of this policy. I think it addresses what you're looking for.
I have a question.
Go ahead, I'm reading this stuff.
Okay. Okay, you said the sheriff was on board because his policy is already similar. But what would make us think we could tell the sheriff what to do, or the prosecutor what to do, or a judge what to do, or the state patrol what to do? And I'm curious about that 1 mile issue in there. I don't know where that came from, but that encompasses quite a bit, you know. And what I'm wondering about, did we have the United States Attorney's Office look at this and the Washington State Attorney General's Office look at this? And they both said, yeah, that looks good. Don't foresee any conflict, or no, this isn't gonna work over here because what if? So I'm just trying to keep from developing conflict farther down the road once this gets adopted in its final stage.
I have not communicated with the U.S. Attorney's Office on this. The AG's office will review it when we have a final policy.
But it's not gonna be final until they would buy out, what is the final policy? Because if we send them a final policy and they say, oh, this section 4 won't work, you know, without doing X, Y, or Z, I mean, isn't it gonna continue to be a draft until we get everybody to buy off on it?
Well, we can certainly send it to the Attorney General's office. Once you all have come to agreement on what you want to see in your policy, we can certainly send it to the Attorney General's office before you adopt it. So you'll know their feedback before you adopt it.
Why not the U.S. Attorney's Office as well here in Seattle?
Because this is related to the Keep Washington Working Act. That's an act established by the Washington State Legislature.
Yes, but we don't want to be in conflict with federal folks at this point, do we? I mean, I can understand what this is all about when Trump was president, for an example, but with the new administration in there, is that still an issue?
So this is in response, and again, all due respect to the 2019 Washington State Legislature and the Keep Washington Working Act that puts all the local jurisdictions to implement policies related to this act. Maybe Elizabeth can elaborate, because as a result of this legislature, back in 2018, the Attorney General's office issued temporary policies aligned to this. And I believe the Attorney General's office policy are incorporated on this draft as well. So the Attorney General's office issued a set of temporary policies in alignment to the Washington Working Act. And some of that temporary policies were incorporated into this version that you see. So the Attorney General's office has been part of this conversation. But if the board wants, and that is going to be my next question when this conversation perhaps near an end, is what would be the next steps the board would like to see related to this policy. We're just bringing this back because I think it has taken us a little while to coordinate all the information with all the stakeholders internally. We send out to the public for review. We've received some comments. We incorporated all the comments. So we're here in presenting what we consider to be a final draft. And the board needs to provide direction as to what will be the next steps you would like to see.
Okay, I guess I'm okay with that, but I mean, I see little things in here like the mile circumference around the courthouse. What does that mean? There will be no enforcement taken on anything within that mile? Officers can't make traffic stops within that mile? I see, things that aren't quite finished, it doesn't look like. Now, if you said on the courthouse campus, that becomes a completely different issue. A mile is quite a ways. If you take and draw a string around, a circle around the courthouse, it doesn't make very good sense to put something in there. And then what happens if a stop is made within that mile and it's a immigration issue and that person is driving the car? What do you do? I mean, we're kind of binding ourselves into an untenable situation, it looks like. That's all I can
That's
say.
a good point. I mean, the radius of a mile, I believe that was part of the Keep Washington Working Act.
Well, I mean, just because somebody suggested it doesn't mean that it would work or that it's practical.
No, I don't think it's. I think it's more than a suggestion. Is state law, and that's what probably we're trying to align this particular policy with the state law. And as far as I understand, we're a little bit behind in implementing these policies because it was. I think we missed the deadline by far related to this Keep Washington Working Act.
My question was going to be along the same lines. Can you explain the structure? Like, is the Attorney General's model policies a floor, and then jurisdictions can go beyond that, or do we have to incorporate, or are those just suggestions? Like, just here's a good way to do it, but you guys can do whatever you want. I mean, what are we bound by to incorporate? Because when you're saying, oh, we just incorporated all these suggestions from all these groups, whether it's the sheriff or strength and sanctuary, it's like, I thought we were kind of trying to follow the Attorney General's model policy, as I thought that was what we were supposed to do.
So we have, yes, and you are correct, these are model policies that the AGO proposed and offered to different, to the jurisdictions impacted by this law. And if we adopted the model policies just straight up, we'd be done. But we wouldn't have to go back to the AGs because we adopted their policy. But if we adopt a policy that's slightly different, I think we want to just, as Commissioner Edwards said, make sure that the Attorney General's on board with our policy. Our policy is tailored to what our players have wanted to put in there. So we have both. We have the model policies that are incorporated, and then we have the court's input in some of this, and we have the sheriff's input. So that's which speaks to our particular players and participants. So we have actually a more robust policy than the model policy. It's not inconsistent with the model policy at all.
So you're saying, just for example, the sheriff's office had suggestions that went beyond what the Attorney General required in its model policy?
I believe so, yeah. I mean, I'd have to go back and compare them. It's been a while since we've pulled all these different pieces in. But we definitely incorporated the model policy because it was a pretty basic framework. And then we added to that. So the courts had certain things that they wanted about, like who they're going to, the chain of command when they need to check a warrant, for example.
I see. Okay.
And I incorporated the sanctuary comment because people wanted to see what those comments were.
Okay, so you're to your knowledge, to the best of your knowledge, sitting here today, if we shipped this draft to the Attorney General, they'd be fine with it because it incorporates everything they wanted. It just has more specific detail that's tailored to our particular system.
Yeah.
And the thing that Commissioner Edwards was referring to about 1 mile, I didn't see that in here, but I mean, I know what he's talking about because I remember that being a discussion point a couple years ago. That's something that the Attorney General requires us to have in there, or that's something we could change to 2 miles or half a mile or what?
I believe I took it from the Attorney General's office, and yes, we could change it.
Backwards or forwards?
Or forward, backwards or forward. And then we'd go back to the Attorney General's office and they'd have to, yeah.
So they could come back and go, no, you've restricted it too much.
Yeah.
Let's say we said 1/4 mile, and then they say, nope, we asked you for a mile.
Yeah.
Got to be at least a half mile.
Right.
Or whatever, based on Thurston County's traffic patterns, and I don't know how they would evaluate that jurisdiction by jurisdiction, but.
Well, or they may just defer to our choice too. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, how do we get to the next step with this, Ramiro? What's the suggestion? What's your suggestion as to how because I have to, I have to look at this a little more carefully myself.
No, so thank you. My suggestion is for you now, you have the red line comments, a clean copy. I will encourage for you to review it. And I will probably bring this item again in 2 weeks. And on December 14th in the morning, then based on your comments or suggestions or perspectives, then we'll incorporate this conversation again with Elizabeth, and then we'll determine what else do we need to do based on the comments we have received from the board members. So, go ahead, Elizabeth.
What, Elizabeth?
I would also be happy to provide, just so that you know where all this information came from, and give you a copy of the model policy, a copy of the sheriff's policies, and the correction bureau's policies, and the court policies, if that would be helpful.
Chair, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner.
If we're following recommendations or rules laid out by the Attorney General, we probably have some protections built into following that, I would guess. I don't know that. But if we incorporate other, I don't know if you want to call them more restrictive or less restrictive issues into this, where do we get any protection? Is there protection in state law that we no longer are liable for it? I'm kind of going to refer to the Blake case just as a crazy example. I mean, the legislature surely intended well when they made whatever law they made that was 50 years later overturned by the court, and then we end up kind of holding the bag for the damages. not that the state isn't stepping forward, but it's also incumbent on the county to cover certain costs, I'm told. I don't know where we're at on that process yet, but so somewhere down the road, if we change what the Attorney General has suggested, what are his suggestions as good as law that give us certain protections? We do take an action and, okay, King's X, you're off the hook, or we don't take an action because of this, King's X, you're off the hook. So that's, I'm kind of looking at the long range exposure that the taxpayers might end up being saddled with based on something we did or did not do because we made a change to accommodate, I don't know, one group or another. I'm just throwing that out as an example. You see where I'm kind of coming from with that? Do we have protections or no? Or if we do this, we're protected. If we don't do it, we don't have anything. So, see if you can give me an answer for that in your legal analysis in 5 minutes or something. I don't know.
I can certainly help within the policy show you where the model policy is and where any diversions from the model policy are.
I guess what I'm looking for, is there a reason to change what the Attorney General has laid out? I guess that's kind of what I'm wondering. I mean, the Attorney General usually gives us something and we get to kind of refer to that.
It's certainly up to the board's discretion to simply adopt the model policy. The sheriff's policy, the correction bureau's policy will still be a standalone document that they're going to enforce themselves. I mean, that is an approach you can take. You can have, the board can simply adopt the model policy, the court can have theirs, sheriff can have theirs.
Yeah, I mean, wouldn't that be better? Because we can't tell the state patrol what to do, or we can't tell the sheriff what to do. But if we adopt what the Attorney General said, it's kind of, okay, that's what the law is. I don't even have to agree with it if that's what the law is. We just adopt it. This is what we're gonna do. This is what the legislature said, the people said. And allow all those other entities to figure out their own thing. They're their own, in most cases, elected bodies that are responsible to the citizens. So I'm just looking for some kind of protection for the taxpayers.
The question seems to be about legal risk and,
Yeah, that's right.
Do we create risk by deviating in any way or
Yes, that's
potential ways
exactly
from the model policies? That's something, I guess, Elizabeth, for you to think about maybe and report back to us what you thought, kind of what you think about that. Anything more on this topic before we move forward? Sounds like we'll be back in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I'll go over in 2 weeks, but as you will read this proposed policy, it doesn't really state that what we need to tell them how the state patrol or the sheriff's office should do. And let me just probably pick one element. And Section 3, civil arrest near the courthouse facilities, I think Commissioner Edwards key on the 1 mile. But for the benefit of the public, for instance, the Thurston County personnel shall not aid in or support any person being subject to arrest on having their freedom restricted solely on the civil immigration offense while present and going to and returning from Thurston County, including within 1 mile of the courthouse, that's something. So in the language is on those terms related to, because this policy does not dictate how a state patrol should conduct business. It's just how internally we're going to be abiding by the Keep Washington Working Act in terms of our policy. And then if you go to Section 4, for instance, gathering information related to immigration status. And the second paragraph talks about the Thurston County records of information regarding persons of the immigration citizen status birthplace shall be agreed or re-identified as an individual. And really, is this how this superior court and district court will take that information? I think it's probably worth to revisit all these statements in this policy for the board to, have an opinion as to the purpose and intent. And in 2 weeks, I will bring this back. At that point, you will have, I'm sure you have comments, questions, suggestions, and then they will determine what will be the next steps by the board. And again, December 14th, I will bring this item for further discussion.
Okay, yeah, I mean, the Commissioner Mejia's question about the jury seems like really on point, because this paragraph in 4, unless it's considered, a judge may make such inquiries as are necessary to adjudicate matters within their jurisdiction. I don't know that the use of the word adjudicate to me doesn't necessarily incorporate asking jurors. I don't know, maybe it does. I mean, you have to have a jury to adjudicate a matter, and if you have some kind of constitutional requirement for what's a qualified juror, but that's definitely a question that should be answered. And I don't know if there's is this language from model policy, Elizabeth? Section 4? Do you remember?
I don't. I'll double check everything. I'll highlight where the model policy is and is not.
Okay.
And Chair, I'd even take that one step farther. So does that end up as some appeal process in a murder case somewhere down the road several years later, because maybe a juror was or was not a qualified juror, and we did or did not do something according to this, which either eliminated or allowed. So I mean, there's a lot of variables that come into play here that can have detrimental impact on our whole system.
That would be great to look into that, because I was under the understanding the potential jurors are picked from the voter registration for those who have voted no.
So they're picked from voter registration and license.
In license. Okay.
Yes. So
that is the opening of the license.
yes, the licenses are the opening, kind of where it opens it up to.
Got it.
What about those people that have an ID card? It's a Washington ID card or
Yes,
something.
so
Those two, right?
Yes, so it pulls
Yeah.
it from.
So a lot of little things in there that can cause confusion, it sounds like.
Okay, very good. Let's move on to, thank you, Elizabeth. Let's move on to item 10.2, Resolution on Racial Equity and Inclusion Council. And Nicole's here, and I know we ran out of time last meeting, but hopefully we can,
So
we can do a little bit of headway here.
yeah, this is a follow-up to a proposal for you. I'm not expecting you to approve this resolution, but Nicole is going to walk you through as to what this resolution includes, and I will ask for you to review, give you some time to review, bring some comments, and at some point, I will ask the board to approve this resolution. Go ahead, Nicole. Your show. You're on mute.
Do we have a copy of that?
Yeah.
Good morning, commissioners. So this before you is a draft resolution standing up the Thurston County Council on Racial Equity and Inclusion. And I don't want to take up too much of your time today, but just hit kind of a high level description of what's in the resolution. Do you want me to wait till Commissioner Edwards?
No, keep going.
Okay. So just within the resolution are some guidelines for the council to be providing the county input on a countywide assessment, input on a staff assessment. They would help us identify barriers to access for our community members, hoping to identify barriers and increasing community participation in development of policies, county practices, services that we provide, providing input on training and consultation to county employees, and also providing community education and outreach. So reaching into our communities and providing that inreach and that outreach, and also serving as a forum for receiving complaints within the county on issues of racism. I can go into more detail if you would like. That's just a high level.
Nicole, walk us through the high level of the council membership, the appointment.
Oh, sure.
The makeup of the members.
So the council membership will be made up of BIPOC community members, and we will have a review, some type of review committee that will review the applications that come in to present to you a selection of applicants then that you will have an option to appoint or not.
So the proposal, the council membership is no fewer than 7 and no more than 15. And the council is proposed to follow the Open Public Meetings Act, as well as obviously the appointment has to be done by the Board of County Commissioners, similar to the appointments that you go through on any other boards and commissions. The proposed terms of this is shall serve 3-year terms and no more than 2 consecutive terms. And I think that was somewhat of a response from the board members. They would like to see a little more diversity in the type of members, not diversity in terms of race, but diversity on opinions and perspective. Because long-term members seems to be an issue that I've heard from the board. And this really provides an opportunity for the board to consider revamping. Really is the Cultural Diversity and Human Rights Council that it was once stood. And that's what you see, one of the first actions to rescind Resolution 10365, which created the Cultural Diversity and Human Rights Council. As I mentioned to you before, I served in that council back in the early 1990s. I believe by my experience there versus what you see before you, I think this particular council is more meaningful. It provides opportunities to provide feedback to the board and potential policies that you may consider implemented related to racial equity, and as well as also give us the opportunity to look at the internal practices that we have here in Thurston County. So my recommendation at this point is for you to review this resolution. I'm not expecting you to approve that today, and please provide me feedback in 2 weeks. If you have any suggestions, any additions, revisions, just to let you know, this particular resolution has been an effort of a small working group that included Dogma, Shelley, Nicole, Marianne, who else am I missing? Gretchen Fowler. So, and that has been, we have embedded this particular proposal on that group, and this is the result of that. So please review it, and please provide comments in 2 weeks, and then we'll see where it goes from there. But at some point, I would like the board to consider approving a resolution on this matter.
Okay, anything that we need from Nicole today, commissioners?
No, sir.
How about,
Robin?
no concern about the resolution as written, just a question about the cost of the unconscious bias training and other training opportunities. When this resolution says that we will make those available, at whose expense?
Well, that's something the board needs to, and as you may recall, during the whole budget conversation, my suggestion was to look at a budget, a training budget as a countywide. That was probably one of the avenues as to how we can meet that intent. But again, if from your perspective, this binds any future boards or any budgetary decisions, that's what I would like to hear.
Right, okay.
And certainly that's not the intent, but certainly, but I do believe the training is pivotal as we move forward.
I agree.
So
I'm just concerned about how much it's gonna cost and who's gonna pay for it, where it comes from, because it's not currently in the budget.
Thank you, Robin.
Just, saying.
Commissioners, anything else before we go forward?
No, sir.
I suppose that there might be some staff time along with the training cost. It's not gonna be dedicated, right? Yep.
Yeah, Nicole is the one who's managed this.
So, I mean, there are other financial considerations is all I'm saying.
Okay, let's move to item 3, Nisqually Land Trust, Baird Cove Conservation Futures Grant, extension request.
Thank you, Commissioners. Let me give you a perspective. We received a request from the Nisqually Land Trust for you to consider a 6-month extension to the grant that has been issued for purchases of conservation land. I give you perspective in terms of when that was awarded. It was awarded in 2019 as part of the Conservation Future Funding round. The Nisqually Land Trust project includes an 88-acre acquisition, which included an estuary called Puget Sound, which is just about 4,200 feet of shoreline, 50 acres of wetland, and 30 acres of mature forest uplands. This particular property is located at Johnson Point, south of the Sitels Marina, and in District 1 of the Commissioner District 1. The total purchase of this particular acquisition is $1.7 million, and the Conservation Futures Grant the board awarded was for $400,000. As you can tell, sometimes the real estate transactions take a little bit of a delay as to how they can get through that process. And I believe that is the case in this particular request. So the request for you to consider extending the closing date from December 31st, 2021 to June 30th, 2022. I believe there is a well worth consideration. This is a good approach, good investment on conservation land here in Thurston County. And Andrew DeFoldes is here to ask any additional questions related to this request.
Any questions for Andy from the board?
No?
Is this, which commissioner sits on the Nisqually Land Trust?
Well, I don't know if I actually sit on that. On the Nisqually River Council, whatever, where I participate. I don't think we have a commissioner.
Okay, I probably got it confused with the Nisqually River Council, sorry. Okay, nope, wrong thing.
I mean, it just seems like the right thing to do.
Right.
Wrong group. Yeah, no, I'm good with it.
So, okay, so go
Reed
ahead,
Thomas.
Andrew, draft the letter extension and we go from there.
Yep. Yes, there was a letter that was drafted and included as part of the materials. Yes.
So let's go ahead and finalize the letter for signatures.
Okay,
You
thank
hear
you.
me, Andrew?
Looks good to me.
Yeah, the letter's right.
Yeah, Andrew's not listening.
No.
He's not hearing me.
He's not listening.
Yeah, he's.
I bet he's trying.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was there a question from you? I might have missed it.
No. I'll follow up. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
All right, item 10.4 is TCOM 911 leadership change.
Yeah, this is in a way procedural, as you know. The current executive director for TCOM 911, Quin has stated that he will be retiring from his post TCOM 911, and that will be at the end of January 2022. And they have already included somewhat of a transition, and the new executive director that will be replacing Keith is going to be Wendy. I can't remember his last name. Wendy Hill. And she has already been approved by the TCOM 911 to serve as to this transitional period. So one of the steps the board needs to do is to send a letter to the Washington State Military Department. In this case, is Major General Brett Doherty, announcing this transition. I have a draft copy attached to you. So I just want to give you a heads up of this change in leadership at TCOM 911. I'm sure you are well aware of that. And I will circulate this letter for your signature. Or maybe we can just e-signature just to facilitate the process. And again, very procedural on this particular matter.
Questions?
I'm okay with the letter, but can we correct my name on the letterhead, on the
Yes, we'll do.
letterhead, please?
Commissioner Edwards, you good?
No questions, I'm good with this.
Okay. Next is public testimony.
I briefly give you a heads up of the public testimony we received this afternoon. I really don't have any other items on that.
What is the estimated time for the executive session?
I believe it's probably 15 minutes. Do you
Okay.
think is that adequate, Elizabeth, 15 minutes?
Yes.
That gives us about 10 minutes if there's a commissioner item that needs addressing. Otherwise, we can go right to executive session. I don't have any myself.
I do.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Hate to be a stick in the mud, but, let's see, two issues. We got a correspondence reference, solid waste contract, I guess is the best way to put it. Where is, I don't know, Waste Management, is that the one that we voted for? Is that the group?
Republic.
Republic, okay. Where are they on their permit on the Shelton, the whole Shelton thing? Is that a thing? Because it was just a concept, so is it now kind of formalized and they've got a permit in the works and looks like everything's happening or not?
I don't have, I'll follow up with that.
Yeah, I mean, just a question based on that letter, I mean, where are we at? Because I do feel the information that I had, I voted with the rest of the board members on this issue, but I did so not knowing there was any concerns. And I know that it looks like there's correspondence.
Yeah, if I may, Commissioner, all this conversation occurred in an executive session. If you'd like to further discuss the contract with Republic in an executive session, we'll be more than happy to schedule that. Right now, we're negotiating the contract directed by the board, and that item will be brought to you for consideration in the next couple of weeks.
Oh, this item that brought to our attention by this law firm?
It's the same issue they have brought this in the past, and I believe we addressed that issue on an executive session.
I don't think so. I mean, I think you said, you may have said that something was going on. I'm asking what has happened.
Yeah, I'll follow up with
Okay.
that question, sir.
Okay, and then one other issue, and I see Elizabeth is here. Getting close to a month ago, you weren't here, County Manager, so Robin maybe was here. And we talked about the broadband issue. And I'm still confused about, can we support one commercial company and not support other commercial companies without being in trouble, without running afoul of, picking winners or losers? That's kind of where I'm at. And I was told that, well, we really didn't need a legal opinion on that, but I'm not satisfied with that.
Well, I don't know how I can satisfy that question.
Well, by hearing it from my attorney.
I did have a conversation with Elizabeth. There is not a legal opinion that needs to be given because there is not a binding document with any of those organizations.
I know, but aren't we trying to get something going here and we're going to be signing some kind of binding agreement?
No, you sign a letter of intent.
Yes, that means we're gonna do something, that
Yeah,
letter of intent.
Whether that letter of intent results on the actual document of partnering with the Squally tribe, that is something related to the board providing letter of support to any other organization. That's a policy decision that you need to go through. that's a policy discussion that you need to have among the board members, whether you like to support 1, 10, or 100 companies that provide broadband. So, and again, it's funny because just yesterday I had a conversation with Elizabeth about there's not really a legal opinion that is waiting for you to say support 1, 2, or 3, or 5. It's more of a policy decision that you need to take.
Yeah, but don't we expose the county to certain liability if we pick one group and don't pick the other group and there wasn't any formal process that went into it?
It's just a letter of support, Commissioner. It's just a letter of support that you're having a conversation on this. And you can support any type of business that you see fit as a policy from the board. So what you're asking is the board to have a policy in place to support all broadband providers. If that is that's what you're suggesting, there's the conversation that you need to have with your teammates. But I believe strongly there is a policy decision the board needs to have.
I want to support the process and get it done so it doesn't get hung up and we don't depend on any one entity to accomplish the goal of providing broadband to our citizens. That's kind of what I'm looking for. So,
I was under the impression that you were preparing to send a letter personally, rather than as the board,
yeah, so I did that, but I made it very generic and made my intentions clear that my goal is to provide broadband to all the citizens in Thurston County as soon as we possibly can.
And that's, I believe, that was the result of the conversation on the same issue last week. The individual board members will exercise your sending letters of support as you see fit. Because last week, I didn't hear any agreement about the board having this policy discussion that you are requesting.
No, I'm not trying to continue a policy that maybe they don't feel comfortable with. I don't know that. I'm just saying, I'm trying to make sure that anything I do, I don't run afoul of any exposure of litigation to the county. And so that's why I want to hear from my attorney. And maybe that could be a private meeting with, is that allowed, Elizabeth? Could you meet with me and kind of set my concerns to rest on that topic?
I would be happy to meet with your commissioner.
Okay, maybe let's do that, then I'll quit bugging you. Okay, good enough, thank you.
All right, let's go into our executive session. This is pursuant to RCW 4230-1101I to discuss with legal counsel potential litigation to which the agency, the governing body, or a member acting in an official capacity is or is likely to become a party, when public knowledge regarding the discussion is likely to result in an adverse legal or financial consequence to the agency. The specific topic to be addressed is budget hearings public notice. Commissioner's action may follow. We're estimating 15 minutes. It's 11:40. Hopefully we can come out at 11:55. I have a 12 o'clock meeting with an outside party that I'm going to have to honor. So that hopefully will be a hard limit on what we can accomplish here, but hopefully that'll be enough time. And so with that preamble, we'll go into executive session.
Okay.